Liam and Chloe, a vibrant duo, were the embodiment of youthful exuberance and profound connection. Their shared apartment in Salt Lake City, filled with maps, climbing gear, and countless framed photos of sun-drenched trails, was a testament to their insatiable wanderlust. Liam, a meticulous architect with a quiet strength, found his adventurous counterpart in Chloe, a freelance photographer whose spirit was as wild and boundless as the landscapes she captured. Their love was an unspoken language, a comforting rhythm that resonated through their days, whether they were debating design blueprints or planning their next escape into the rugged beauty of Utah. They were a pair perfectly balanced, dreaming of a future painted with shared adventures and quiet domesticity, utterly unaware of the chasm awaiting them. Their modest bungalow, nestled against the foothills, offered a panoramic view of the distant Wasatch Peaks, a constant invitation to the wild. Mornings often began with the aroma of Chloe's brewing coffee, and Liam sketching new designs at their sun-drenched kitchen table, a comfortable routine punctuated by discussions of weekend escapades. Their garage, usually a repository for hiking boots and camping stoves, currently housed their sleek cherrywood rowing boat, meticulously maintained for their upcoming expedition. This particular weekend promised a tranquil escape to a secluded lake deep within Utah's canyon lands, a place they cherished for its untouched serenity and challenging solitude. It was their sanctuary, a place where the world faded, leaving only the whisper of wind and the rhythmic dip of oars. The morning of their departure dawned with a clarity that felt almost prophetic. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and distant sagebrush, and the sky was an endless, unblemished blue, a perfect canvas for what should have been just another unforgettable adventure. They packed their provisions with practiced ease, a thermos of coffee, a worn map, and Chloe's ever-present camera, her excitement palpable. Their destination, a remote, glassy lake hidden deep within a labyrinth of ancient red rock canyons, promised unparalleled tranquility. There, amidst the towering, silent sentinels of stone, they anticipated nothing more than the gentle rocking of their boat, the quietude of nature, and the shared joy of their love. The world, for them, was a promise of continued beauty, utterly oblivious to the profound silence that was about to descend. The morning sun, a generous golden disk, warmed the air as Liam and Chloe cut through the mirror-smooth surface of the lake. The rhythmic dip of their oars was the only sound, a soothing counterpoint to the profound silence of the surrounding canyons. Towering red rock formations, sculpted by millennia of wind and water, rose like ancient guardians, their sheer faces reflecting the vibrant sky. Chloe, her eyes squinting against the glare, captured the breathtaking vista with her camera, her heart swelling with the shared beauty. Liam, ever the stoic, allowed a rare, contented smile to grace his lips, his gaze fixed on the distant shadowed alcoves. This was their sanctuary, a place where time dissolved, leaving only the purity of the moment and the unbreakable bond they shared. The world felt vast, yet entirely theirs. A subtle shift in the air, a whisper that wasn't wind, broke the tranquil spell. Chloe lowered her camera, a faint frown creasing her brow. "Did you hear that?" she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam paused, oars held aloft, listening intently. A low, resonant hum, almost imperceptible, seemed to emanate from the very depths of the canyon, a vibration more felt than heard. It wasn't the familiar groan of shifting rock or the distant call of wildlife. It was alien, an unsettling thrum that seemed to pulse through the water itself. A shiver traced Chloe's spine, her photographer's intuition prickling with an undefined unease. Liam's eyes scanned the towering cliffs, searching for an origin, his quiet strength now tinged with a nascent apprehension. The hum intensified, a low, persistent throb that seemed to draw them deeper into the canyon's embrace. A peculiar current, previously unnoticed, began to tug at the boat, subtly altering their course towards a less familiar, darker recess of the canyon wall. Chloe pointed, her finger trembling slightly. "Look," she breathed. "There's an opening. I've never seen it before." Nestled between two colossal rock fins, a narrow, shadowed fissure appeared, seemingly carved into the ancient stone. It looked less like a cave and more like a tear in the fabric of the rock, beckoning with an almost hypnotic pull. Liam, his architect's mind intrigued by the unexpected formation, felt a strange compulsion. "Just a quick look," he decided, his voice attempting a reassurance he didn't entirely feel. As they neared the fissure, the air grew noticeably colder, carrying a faint, metallic scent. The low hum intensified, now accompanied by a disorienting, swirling mist that seemed to emanate from within the opening. The water, previously clear, turned murky, reflecting the encroaching darkness. Liam gripped the oars tighter, his muscles tensing, a primal instinct urging caution. Yet curiosity, a shared trait, propelled them forward. Chloe leaned over the edge, her camera forgotten, eyes wide with a mixture of fascination and growing trepidation. The opening swallowed the sunlight, plunging them into a sudden, profound twilight. The hum became a low, guttural roar, vibrating through the boat, through their very bones. They exchanged a final, apprehensive glance, their silent question hanging in the chilling air. The moment they crossed the unseen threshold, chaos erupted. The roar escalated into a deafening, disorienting shriek, and the boat lurched violently, as if caught in an unseen vortex. A blinding flash of azure light erupted from the fissure's depths, momentarily scorching their retinas, followed by an intense, bone-rattling vibration that threatened to tear the boat apart. Liam instinctively wrapped an arm around Chloe, pulling her close, trying to anchor them against the incomprehensible force. The air crackled with an unnatural energy, a raw, primal power that defied all logic. The boat spun, pitching them against the unforgiving rock, the sound of splintering wood lost in the cacophony. Fear, pure and visceral, seized them, their desperate cries swallowed by the overwhelming surge. Then, a sudden, horrifying plunge. They were thrown from the boat, the frigid water closing over them, disorienting every sense. Liam fought, thrashing against the powerful unseen current that dragged them deeper, his hand desperately reaching for Chloe. He glimpsed her, a fleeting shadow in the swirling chaos, her eyes wide with terror and a profound, heartbreaking understanding. He heard a faint, desperate gasp, then felt an agonizing separation, an invisible force tearing them apart. The light, the sound, the cold. Everything faded into an oppressive, absolute darkness. A final, fragmented thought of Chloe, of their shared dreams, before consciousness slipped away, replaced by an unsettling silence. The lake, now seemingly calm, held its secrets tight, leaving only an overturned vessel as a desolate testament to their vanishing. The world moved on, but for Emily, Liam's younger sister, time had shattered into a million painful shards. The initial, frantic search for Liam and Chloe had morphed into a hollow echo, the hope fading with each passing, fruitless day. Their Salt Lake City apartment, once vibrant with Liam's quiet strength and Chloe's infectious laughter, now felt like a tomb of unspoken dreams. Every framed photo of their adventures, every unread book on Liam's shelf, was a fresh wound. Emily would spend countless nights staring at the Wasatch Peaks, a silent accusation in their grandeur, wondering how such a beautiful place could harbor such a devastating secret. The first year was a blur of raw grief, desperate phone calls, and the cruel, constant whisper of no new leads. For David, Chloe's father, the disappearance was a silent, crushing weight that settled deep in his bones. A man of few words, his grief manifested not in tears, but in a relentless, methodical pursuit of answers. He became the family's stoic anchor, yet inside, he was adrift. The official search, with its helicopters and sonar, had dwindled to nothing, leaving behind only the cold, impersonal label of a cold case. His modest home office, once a sanctuary for his accounting work, transformed into a desolate command center. Maps of Utah's canyonlands, covered in faded red circles and question marks, became his nightly obsession, each line a testament to an unanswered prayer, a silent plea for his daughter's return. As the second year bled into the third, Emily's initial despair hardened into a grim, unyielding resolve. The vibrant, carefree young woman who adored her older brother had vanished, replaced by a haunted, driven investigator. She enrolled in night classes studying geology, cartography, and even the basics of search and rescue, convinced that knowledge would unlock the wilderness's secrets. Sleep became a luxury, her dreams haunted by the image of Liam's smile, fueling a guilt-ridden determination. "I should have gone with them," a persistent whisper echoed in her mind, a corrosive thought that gnawed at her sanity, pushing her to dedicate every waking moment to a search that seemed increasingly futile to everyone else. David's life, too, had become a somber ritual. Every Saturday morning, without fail, he would drive the desolate hours to the remote lake, his thermos of coffee his only companion. He would stand by the water's edge, gazing at the glassy surface, imagining Chloe's laughter, the rhythmic dip of their oars. The sheer indifference of the landscape, unchanged by his profound loss, was both a torment and a strange comfort. He rarely spoke of Chloe's disappearance, the words too heavy, too painful. Instead, he channeled his grief into maintaining her memory, tending to her small art studio, each brush stroke on an unfinished canvas, a poignant reminder of the vibrant life abruptly stolen from him. By the 6th year, the initial shock had long since faded, replaced by a chronic, pervasive ache. Emily and David were no longer the people they once were. They were monuments to an enduring, unresolved tragedy. Their lives, once full of their own trajectories, had become defined by this absence. Friends and distant relatives had stopped calling, the well of sympathy having long run dry, leaving them in a quiet, isolated vigil. Holidays were somber affairs, marked by the gaping void at the table, a stark reminder of the laughter that was no longer there. The world had moved on, but for them, time had simply ceased to exist, trapped in the moment of disappearance. Emily's search had escalated from dedication to an almost desperate obsession. Her small apartment was no longer just a living space. It was a sprawling research lab covered in topographical maps, geological reports, and cryptic notes. She spent hours poring over satellite images, convinced she could spot an anomaly, a hidden fissure, anything that the initial searches might have missed. Moments of crushing doubt would surface, questioning her sanity, the futility of it all, but then a vivid memory of Liam, his quiet strength, his unwavering belief in her, would surge forward, reigniting the fire. "I can't stop," she'd whisper to the empty room. "He's out there, or something is." David, in contrast, had found a different, more somber form of acceptance, though the pain was no less profound. His weekly trips to the lake continued, but his gaze was less frantic, more contemplative, as if he were having a silent conversation with the water itself. He still yearned for answers, but the raw, desperate hope had been replaced by a quiet, resigned resolve. He focused on keeping Chloe's spirit alive, curating her photographs, sharing stories of her vibrant personality with the few who still listened. His life had undeniably shrunk, centered around this unyielding, unanswerable question. Will I ever truly know what happened, or will this mystery haunt me forever? Despite their individual battles with grief and their divergent ways of coping, Emily and David shared an unspoken, powerful bond. They rarely spoke of giving up, a silent pact forged in shared sorrow. The idea of closure remained a distant, shimmering mirage, but the relentless pursuit of truth had become their shared purpose, a reason to get out of bed each morning. They were no longer just a sister and a father. They were guardians of a lost memory, forever transformed by the chasm that had swallowed their loved ones. They continued to wait, a perpetual holding pattern, until the vast, indifferent wilderness finally yielded its long-held secret. 6 years had etched lines of worry onto Emily's face and deepened the stoic silence around David. But the wilderness, indifferent to their grief, continued its slow, ancient dance. Deep within a forgotten corner of Utah's vast canyon lands, far from any known trail, lay an unmapped cave system. It was here, during a routine but ambitious exploration, that a team of seasoned cavers, led by the quiet but meticulous Dr. Eris Thorne, stumbled upon an anomaly. Their headlamps cut through the inky blackness, revealing a narrow passage previously obscured by centuries of mineral deposits. Squeezing through, they entered a small, perfectly preserved chamber, untouched by the outside world. The air was still, cool, and carried a faint earthy scent, a time capsule waiting to be opened, its secrets held in suspended animation. Their eyes, accustomed to the raw majesty of rock, suddenly fixed on something profoundly out of place. Nestled carefully on a small elevated ledge, almost as if placed there with reverence, was a small dark object. Dr. Thorne approached cautiously, his gloved hand reaching out. It was a leather-bound diary, remarkably preserved, its surface smooth despite the passage of time. A faint, almost imperceptible CM was etched into the worn cover. Chloe Miller. The realization hit them with the force of a physical blow. This wasn't just a discovery, it was a ghost from a cold case, a whisper from the past. The diary was sealed with a delicate, almost petrified wax seal, remarkably intact, suggesting it had been deliberately protected. The cavers, usually stoic and focused on geological wonders, felt an unprecedented tremor of awe and trepidation. They understood, instinctively, that they held something profoundly significant, a lifeline connecting the present to a 6-year-old mystery. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon, shattering the familiar, melancholic rhythm of Emily's life. The police chief, a voice she knew too well from years of futile inquiries, sounded uncharacteristically hesitant, almost reverent. "Emily, we may have found something in a cave near the lake." Her breath hitched, a fragile hope blossoming in her chest, immediately contending with a familiar, crushing fear. She called David, her voice trembling, the news delivered in clipped, disbelieving sentences. For 6 years, they had clung to the thinnest threads of possibility, enduring the skepticism of others, the slow erosion of their own hope. Now, a tangible object, a piece of Chloe, had resurfaced from the depths of the earth. It was a moment of profound, terrifying hope, a promise of answers that might be too painful to bear. The drive to the county sheriff's office felt impossibly long, the Utah landscape blurring into an indifferent canvas outside the car windows. Emily gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white, while David sat beside her, his gaze fixed straight ahead, a silent storm raging behind his eyes. Inside the sterile evidence room, the diary lay on a clean white cloth, under a harsh fluorescent light. It was smaller than Emily imagined, yet its presence filled the room, radiating an almost palpable energy. Seeing Chloe's familiar initials, so clear and poignant on the aged leather, brought a fresh wave of grief, sharp and immediate, slicing through the years of numbness. This wasn't just an object, it was a piece of Chloe, her thoughts, her last moments, waiting to be revealed. The air was thick with unspoken questions, each one heavier than the last. The sheriff explained the painstaking process of verification, confirming its authenticity beyond doubt. Then came the question, hanging heavy in the silence. "Do you want us to open it?" Emily and David exchanged a look, a silent conversation passing between them that transcended words. The diary was sealed, a deliberate act by Chloe, perhaps to protect its contents, or perhaps as a final, desperate message. To unseal it felt like an invasion, a violation of a sacred trust, yet not opening it was unthinkable. This was their chance, their only chance, to understand. The answer was a quiet, unified nod. A forensic specialist, her movements precise and careful, prepared to break the 6-year-old seal, the tension in the room almost unbearable. Every breath felt amplified, every second stretched into an eternity. With a soft, almost imperceptible crack, the seal yielded. The specialist gently pried open the cover, revealing the first few pages. Chloe's distinctive, elegant handwriting filled the parchment, neat and familiar. The first entry was dated the morning of their departure, a mundane observation about the crisp air and Liam's excitement. Emily's eyes scanned quickly, her heart hammering against her ribs, searching for anything, any hint of the impending horror. Then, on the second page, a line jumped out, stark and unsettling. A strange hum. Felt it in the water. Liam thinks it's just the wind, but it's deeper. Something else. The words, preserved across time, sent a shiver down Emily's spine, echoing the unsettling thrum they had never understood. The mystery was not over. It had just begun. The more Emily read, the more the initial entries, filled with Chloe's vibrant observations of the lake and Liam's quiet contentment, twisted into a prelude of dread. Chloe's casual mention of a strange hum, felt it in the water, followed by the unsettling realization that it's deeper. Something else sent a cold shiver down Emily's spine. It confirmed her deepest, most unspoken fear. This wasn't just a tragic accident. The words, preserved in time, resonated with an unyielding certainty, erasing any lingering hope of a simple, natural explanation. David, his gaze fixed on the turning pages, felt a familiar knot of grief tighten in his chest, now laced with a new, terrifying layer of confusion. The silence in the room was thick with unspoken questions. As Emily continued to read aloud, Chloe's descriptions became increasingly precise and unsettling. She meticulously detailed the peculiar current that had begun to tug at their boat, subtly altering their course towards a less familiar, darker recess of the canyon wall. Chloe's entry about the sudden appearance of a narrow-shadowed fissure, which she had never seen before, painted a vivid and terrifying picture of their forced deviation. The air growing colder, the faint metallic scent, and the disorienting mist emanating from within the opening. Every detail confirmed that they hadn't chosen this path. They were drawn in, pulled by an unseen, undeniable force, a chilling revelation that made Emily's blood run cold. Armed with these harrowing details, Emily and David knew they had no choice but to return to the lake, to the very spot Chloe described. The sheriff, though initially skeptical, could not deny the specificity of the diary's geographical clues, and reluctantly agreed to provide limited resources. The journey back felt heavier, the familiar Utah landscape now imbued with a sinister undertone, each towering canyon wall a silent witness. The remote, winding dirt roads and challenging terrain became a physical manifestation of the mental obstacles they faced, a cruel reminder of the wilderness's indifference. Reaching the lake, its surface mirroring the vast unblemished sky, offered no comfort, only an oppressive quiet. Locating the narrow fissure, precisely as Chloe had described it, nestled between two colossal rock fins, proved arduous, partially obscured by years of shifting sediment and shadow. When they finally found it, a distinct chill emanated from its depths, a faint metallic scent still clinging to the air, just as Chloe had meticulously recorded. Emily felt a profound, almost dizzying sense of dread standing at the very precipice of her loved one's disappearance, the air thick with unspoken tragedy. David, his face a mask of suppressed emotion, reached out, his hand hovering over the ancient unyielding stone, as if trying to grasp the last tangible remnants of Chloe's presence. This was the threshold where their lives had irrevocably changed. Back in the sterile confines of the evidence room, Emily's voice trembled as she read Chloe's entries, detailing the moment of chaos. The deafening, disorienting shriek, the blinding flash of azure light, and the intense, bone-rattling vibration that threatened to tear their boat apart. Chloe's visceral recounting of the event defied any natural explanation. Emily, drawing on her geological studies, desperately tried to rationalize it as an extreme, uncatalogued seismic event. But David, his pragmatic mind reeling, felt a growing, terrifying conviction that this was something far beyond scientific understanding. The diary was no longer just a record of a tragedy. It was a terrifying testament to an encounter with an inexplicable, raw power. As the diary entries delved deeper into the realm of the incomprehensible, Emily and David found themselves facing increasing resistance from the authorities. The sheriff, once a pillar of support, now regarded Emily's theories about unnatural energy and unseen forces with thinly veiled skepticism, dismissing them as products of prolonged grief. David, despite his own internal struggle with the bizarre nature of the revelations, fiercely defended Chloe's account, but his pleas for further investigation into unconventional avenues were met with polite but firm rejections. The pressure mounted, not just from external disbelief, but from their own exhausting battle against the encroaching doubt that whispered insidious questions into their minds. Then came an entry that shattered any remaining conventional expectations. Tucked amidst the increasingly frantic and fragmented descriptions of the chaos, Chloe had meticulously sketched a symbol. It was not a word or a landscape, but an intricate, geometric pattern that pulsed with an alien symmetry, unlike anything Emily had ever encountered in her vast collection of geological texts, or David in his extensive knowledge of local petroglyphs. This cryptic drawing plunged them into a new dimension of mystery. The symbol was a silent scream, a final desperate attempt by Chloe to convey something beyond words, suggesting their disappearance was not merely an accident, but an encounter with something profoundly, terrifyingly unknown. The last pages of the diary were a blur of fragmented sentences, hurried scribbles, and smudged ink, reflecting the sheer terror of Chloe's final moments. Falling, pulled down, not alone, were some of the chilling, almost illegible phrases that hinted at an agonizing separation from Liam. The diary ended abruptly, mid-sentence, a chilling testament to the suddenness of their vanishing. Emily and David closed the book, the silence in the room deafening. The truth, as revealed by Chloe's words, was not a simple accident, but a profound, terrifying encounter with an unknown force, an entity or phenomenon that had utterly consumed them. The question now was not what happened, but how to process this unbearable, inexplicable reality, and whether to share such a disturbing truth with a world that would undoubtedly refuse to believe it. The cryptic symbol, Chloe's desperate final message, burned itself into Emily's mind, a terrifying puzzle piece that finally completed the horrifying picture painted by the diary. "We have to go back," she whispered, her voice raw, not a question but a statement of absolute necessity. David, his face a landscape of etched grief and new, unyielding resolve, simply nodded. The sheriff, already pushed to his limits by Emily's increasingly outlandish theories, grudgingly offered minimal support, convinced they were chasing shadows born of despair. But Emily and David knew better. They weren't seeking a body. They were seeking a confrontation with the inexplicable force that had stolen their loved ones. A final, terrifying pilgrimage back to the threshold of their personal abyss, armed only with Chloe's chilling words and an unshakable, agonizing need for the whole truth. Returning to the fissure, 6 years of accumulated dread clung to the air, thick and palpable. The metallic scent was stronger now, the chilling hum a low thrum beneath their feet, resonating deep within the ancient stone. As Emily and David cautiously approached the shadowed opening, a faint, almost imperceptible shimmer pulsed within its depths, mirroring the geometric pattern Chloe had sketched. It wasn't a light, but a distortion of the very air, a ripple in reality. They peered into the profound darkness, and for a fleeting, agonizing second they saw it. Not Liam or Chloe, but an ephemeral, swirling vortex of azure energy, precisely as Chloe described, pulling inward, a silent, ravenous maw. The truth was not human, not natural. It was an alien presence, a cosmic anomaly that had simply consumed them, leaving no trace but a diary and an unshakable terror. They didn't find closure in the traditional sense. No bodies to bury, no final resting place. Instead, they found a truth far more profound and terrifying than any accident. An encounter with an unknown that defied human comprehension. Standing before the silent, indifferent fissure, a chilling catharsis washed over them. The endless, gnawing uncertainty was replaced by a brutal, undeniable knowing. Liam and Chloe weren't lost. They were taken, absorbed into something vast and inexplicable. Emily clutched David's hand, a silent vow passing between them to guard this unbearable secret. For who would ever believe them? They would live forever haunted by the azure light, the hum and the chilling symbol, forever bound to the unspoken depths of the canyon, their love transformed into a sentinel against the cosmic unknown. After the chilling encounter at the fissure, the world seemed to tilt on its axis for Emily and David. The drive back from the remote lake was steeped in an unnatural silence. The familiar Utah landscape now imbued with an unsettling, alien quality. The gnawing uncertainty that had plagued them for 6 years was gone, replaced by a truth so profound and terrifying it felt like a cosmic joke. Liam and Chloe weren't merely lost to the wilderness. They were consumed by something inexplicable, an azure vortex, a cosmic maw that defied all human understanding. This unbearable knowledge, a secret no one would ever believe, settled over them like a shroud, binding them in a shared, silent torment. Their grief, once a sharp, searing pain, had transformed into a cold, almost reverent awe of the unknown, forever etched into their souls. Their lives, irrevocably altered, became a delicate balance between outward normalcy and the crushing weight of their hidden reality. Emily continued her geological studies, but now with a haunting new lens, searching for patterns in the earth that might hint at other such anomalies. A silent, desperate mission to map the inexplicable. David, though still visiting the lake, no longer sought answers. He stood vigil, a silent guardian of Chloe's memory and the terrifying truth. The world continued its indifferent spin, but for them every sunrise was a reminder of the chasm they had peered into, every shadow a potential echo of the azure light. Their love for Liam and Chloe, once a beacon of joy, had become a solemn promise to honor their memory by carrying this burden alone. There was no conventional closure, no neat resolution to their 6-year odyssey. The fissure remained, a silent, gaping wound in the ancient rock, a portal to an incomprehensible reality that continued to exist, indifferent to human suffering. Emily and David lived with the profound, unsettling knowledge that their loved ones weren't resting in peace, but were part of a mystery far grander and more terrifying than any grave. Their journey had not ended with answers, but with a new, terrifying question. What else lies hidden in the vast, indifferent universe? They had touched the edge of the unknown, and in doing so, were forever transformed. Their lives a quiet, enduring testament to the fragility of human existence and the chilling, boundless secrets that lie just beyond our perception, leaving the audience to reflect on the unspoken depths that surround us all.